So today we're gonna review and take a look at every film in the DCEU. Now, I know a lot of you are gonna say, Marvel fanboy! Marvel fan! No, I'm not a Marvel fanboy, alright? I will admit, Marvel does have some really good movies, but they also have some really just god-awful movies. And also, before I start this review thingy, I want to let you know these are my opinions. So if you like Suicide Squad, that's fine, I don't care. Like, everybody has their own opinion. I just want to share my opinions because I love DC's characters, and I think they could really do something good with them if they had the criticism. I know they're not gonna watch this video. I know that for a fact. But I just want to get my opinion out there. So let's begin. When I first watched Man of Steel, I thought it was awful. I thought it was a terrible movie. I thought everyone was stupid, no one could act. But looking back on it, I think it's great. I think it's a great movie. Sure, there are some really stupid parts, like when the father, Jonathan Kent, dies. I think that was absolute garbage. And that's really the only complaint I have with this movie. Everything else looks great. You understand why the villain is doing this. An amazing Superman, probably the best Superman we've ever had. An amazing cast, except Lois. And the sound design and the visuals they come together perfectly. Everything sounds beautiful in this movie. And everything also looks beautiful. It's like you're thrown into this world, and that's exactly what a superhero movie should do. Throws you into the world and gets you involved in these characters. The problem I have with Lois is that she's boring, she's so transparent, and she's supposed to be the outgoing reporter that'll do anything just to get the scoop, but she is so unbelievably boring, transparent, and you can tell they just put her in there just to make her a love interest for Clark or Superman, and it sucks. I honestly hate her. She's really annoying. In conclusion, Man of Steel is a great movie. I understand why people don't like it, but I love it. I think it's a great movie. Batman v Superman is an absolute mess of a film. It's way too long, clocking in at like 2 hours and 31 minutes, I think. And it's like, you could have easily condensed it down into like an hour. And even if they did condense it down to an hour, it would be so unbelievably boring. This film, all it is just absolute trash parts with Lois. Lois is one of the worst parts of this movie. She's even worse in this movie than what she was in Man of Steel. It's even worse because she's so annoying, and I really do not care about her storyline at all. And so Superman is getting framed for like murder or something gay like that. She gets a bullet and she's all like, oh my god, it's LexCorp, and like, I don't care. There were some people who were trying so goddamn hard that it was impossible to watch them. And then there were some people who didn't even try at all. Lex Luthor was the one who I felt like he was trying way too hard. He was just trying to be the Joker. To be honest, he gave the best that he can do, I guess, but he was trying way too hard in my opinion. And then you have people who aren't even trying, like Lois. Remember how I said this is probably the best Superman we've ever seen? Yeah, wipe that from your mind. I don't believe that anymore after watching this movie. Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, and Lois, I don't even know her acting name because I don't care. Like, she's just, they don't even try. They are so boring. They are so unbelievably boring. The movie looks awful. It is so unbelievably dark because they're trying to make the DC universe more realistic and more, wow, everything isn't a nice place like Marvel. Everything is dark. Like, it's so dark, at some moments I couldn't even see what was happening. It was just so dark and so bland. And like, the movie doesn't even know what it's trying to be. It's just like, oh, a political commentary. What if Superman was real? This mystery story. Lex Luthor. It's trying to be realistic, but it doesn't work at all. Wonder Woman was also awful, but at least you can tell she's like trying. She's getting better each movie, but like, oh my god. She's still bad, but she isn't as bad as, like, let's say, Lois, and you can tell they only, like, introduced her to make fans go, like, Wonder Woman! And get everybody hyped up for Justice League and the movie. In conclusion, this movie is awful. This movie is so bad. But, alright. about to get worse. If you thought Batman v Superman was bad, you're gonna think this is one of the worst movies of all time. It is. It is awful. It is such a bad movie. It is so unbelievably long. It is so long. Like, because it's long, that makes it so boring. Like, this movie is like 2 hours or something, I forget. I've watched 2-hour movies before, but this one, it's so stupid. Nothing makes sense. Every character is just retarded. This movie is so bad. In the beginning, you're just lazily introduced to these characters by Amanda telling that they must make a team. So if a Superman-like figure comes in, or if Superman himself comes back to life and, kills everyone and becomes evil, they have a team to destroy Superman. Even though every single one of these people are part of the team are super villains, they are known for being complete psychopaths who do not care about anything but maybe themselves. So how do you expect them to work together and defeat a giant boss? This movie should have never existed because it doesn't make any sense at all. I know many of you are gonna say, it's a comic book movie, who cares? But when DC is trying to make their universe more realistic and set more into the real world, you kinda have to judge it like that. None of them have superpowers, except one. And that guy, he doesn't even use them. He barely even uses them because he's scared of them. And he's the most interesting character. Too bad they barely give him any story. They barely even develop him. And then there's the tone. This movie has no idea what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a comedy, but it's also trying to be a, action movie that's also trying to be very serious. And it doesn't work. It all doesn't mix well. No one knows how to act in this film at all. Especially Will Smith. He obviously doesn't want to be there. He doesn't know what he's doing there. He obviously just wants to get his paycheck and leave. Just exactly like Ben Affleck. The CGI villains look like absolute ass. They look awful. I hate DC so much because they have these villains in these movies that are just giant baddies that look like absolute ass because they have CGI. When DC has so many good villains that don't even need CGI. It's just, it hurts my head. It really does. Also, what the hell is Captain Boomerang? A man who just throws a boomerang at someone. Deadshot, a guy with a gun. And Harley Quinn, just an insane girl with a giant hammer, gonna do up against two giant witches. Also, just like Batman v Superman, this movie is so unbelievably dark. Sometimes I could barely even see what was right in front of me. And that's not good for a movie. Also, the colors are just so obnoxious, and there's like a filter that they put on it sometimes when like the Joker shows up, and it just looks so bad. In conclusion, this movie is worse than Batman v Superman. No one knows how to act. No one knows what they're doing. This movie is just a complete mess, and it looks like trash. Next film.
So I'm here because Cyro is way too lazy to watch this movie, even though it's probably the best in this shitty universe, but okay. So Wonder Woman stars, you wouldn't have guessed it, Wonder Woman, and it takes place during World War I. So this guy named Steve Trevor, his plane crashes into, I'm not gonna say that, I'm just gonna put it on screen, I can't fucking pronounce that.
Themyscira! God.
His plane crashes there, and Wonder Woman rescues him. So then Wonder Woman and the rest of the Amazons get information out of him, and he basically just says World War I is happening, and then Wonder Woman and all the Amazons freak out, and they think Ares is coming and he started the war. So then Wonder Woman and Steve set out to go back and help during the war. And while they're there, this story plays like the fish out of water story. Diana does some stupid things. She doesn't really know what the fuck she's doing. Very similar to what we've seen in Thor, but in my personal opinion, I think it's done much better here. And then the main story is just Diana thinking that Ares caused the war, and she thinks that if she kills him, the war will just magically end. But guess what? That's not actually what happens, and she learns the cold hard truth that just men are evil. And how can I forget the love relationship between Diana and Steve? And it was decent. It's probably the best we can get out of a comic book story. But yeah, the movie is good until the final 15 minutes. Honestly, you can just skip that. It's just your generic action with the CGI boss. And on top of all that, the CGI just looks awful. Ares was just so disappointing to look at. Ares is by far one of the coolest designs, but in this movie they just fucked it up. But besides that, this movie was average. But it's pretty sad that this average movie looks so good compared to the other movies in this universe. I just really don't think this movie deserves a 92 on Rotten Tomatoes. It's not that good. But I guess when you look at the rest of the universe, this movie is a fucking masterpiece. Fuck you, Sarah.
So Justice League. We're finally at the end. Justice League is an awful movie. I do not like this movie because no one can act. Ben Affleck does not want to be there at all. He does not want to be in these movies at all because, like, I can tell. It's so annoying. He just looks like he's on the verge of crying. Wonder Woman is getting better, but she's still really bad. Flash and Aquaman, they're alright. The Cyborg, I don't know. He's such a forgettable character. Like, every time Cyborg was on screen, I was all like, oh wow, yeah, I forgot about that guy. And this movie just, it just looks like a PS2, I swear to God. Like, the CG, like, I wish they would stop using CG. It just looks so bad. I will admit, my favorite part, my favorite scene was when, you know, Clark, Lois, and his mom, you know, they're all in a thing, and, you know, that was nice. There were some scenes that were, like, so unbelievably, like, bad, and they didn't even contribute to the story. Like, the one of the opening scenes is when you're introduced to Wonder Woman again, even though we've already seen her, and, like, she's in a robbery thing. We don't know what, like, they're trying to rob a bank and, like, explode, like, the hostages and themselves or something, and, like, we don't know who these people are, we don't know what's happening, and it's like, what? Why? What's the point? If you're trying to introduce Wonder Woman, like, we've already seen her, there's no point. Sometimes when, like, Ben Affleck or, like, Cyborg is talking, they, you know, on Star Trek or, you know, Star Wars, when they, say something completely ridiculous and weird, like, oh, gotta go in a hyperspeed, oh! You know that? At least they look like they know what they're talking about. With this, they have no idea what they're talking about. It's like, this movie is such a mess. This movie is so bad. Again, Lois is awful, like always. Also, I was told by a little fox that, you know, be on the lookout for, Superman's, like, you know, top late, look at it for a while, whenever he's in the scene, and I did, and it looks like absolute ass. This movie sucks. This movie sucks so bad. This movie sucks. This movie double sucks. This movie sucks my balls. Alright, so that's pretty much it. Bye. This movie sucks!